Hello, everyone. Hi, it's Gordon Causey. And as always, this is Candy Wonder Pup, my dog of the past 4 years. Should have named her COVID or Corona. We got her on March 18th, 2020. Thank goodness we picked her out in February of 2020 before the insanity hit. And thank goodness, because as anyone who was looking for a dog around that time after COVID hit knows, the price of dogs went through the roof. And I like to start out my videos. Typically, if you watch any of my previous ones, you'll notice, okay, shake ball, lay down, speak. Oh, that's a better one. Come on up. And that gives me peace because she loves to jump up on me. The more attention you give a dog, the more they want. She's amazing. Anyway, thank you for watching, and thank you to everyone who has recently subscribed, has liked my videos, the comments. There's one video in particular that is just for this miserable, pathetic channel with no production values, just me sitting at a table on a cheap laptop. Yeah, unbelievable. For me, typically my videos would get a few dozen views. Might get the odd one here and there that might go into 100. I've had a couple get up to 1,000 over time. But one I did just 4 or 5 days ago, where I just told a couple of Justin Trudeau jokes, has garnered over 15,000 views. And I'm a nobody. Nobody knows who I am. Gordon Causey, Joe Nobody in southeastern Ontario, Canada. And it tells me that it speaks to the climate. It speaks to the political climate in this nation state of Canada, where people are fed up with Trudeau and the Trudeau Liberals. Not everybody. I did a quick check of the polls. I watch them periodically. There's a website that I've linked down below. It's called 338.com, the digits 338.com. And it's an aggregator. I don't know the name of the individual who started it, but what he did is he created something of a computer model, almost like Moneyball, almost like this Bill James stuff that was used in baseball to track things. But he did in the political sphere, and he's been tracking the last 4 or 5 elections, and his predictions have proven to be incredibly prescient. It's a dynamic model that looks at the polls that have come out, weights the polls based on reputation, methodology, sample size, all things of this nature, and then he makes a projection. And what the site is projecting at this point, on February 11th or thereabouts, 2024, is that if an election were held today, that the Conservative Party of Canada, being led by Pierre Poilievre, that they would almost certainly 99% guaranteed to win, to be the governing party at the conclusion of an election. And the Liberals have less than 1% of a chance of winning. I'm just looking at the site right now. And it's almost guaranteed to be a majority government. And I think I have some insight as to why Trudeau is so incredibly unpopular. And again, not with everybody. He is polling, the Liberal Party is polling in and around 24%, 20 to 24 in that neighborhood. And the Conservatives are all around 40, high 30s, 40s. Right now, the Conservatives with 170 seats needed for a majority, this site is projecting that the Conservatives would win 203, the Liberals would be at 70. And it gives the odds of a Conservative majority, it puts it at 97%. And the odds of winning a minority, 3%. And the Liberals have a less than 1% chance, according to this site. And again, according to this individual's projections, less than a 1% chance of forming the government, which will make a lot of Canadians happy, about 3/4 of us. But why does my opinion matter? It doesn't. Make up your own mind. But with that being said, I'm not completely out of my depth here. On top of being a lifelong political junkie, I also studied political science at York University at the undergraduate level. I make I'm not going to present myself as some expert, as a political savant, but I know a lot about the political game. And on top of that, I'm not what I will call a partisan type individual. There are individuals in this country who they don't care who or what is running for the Liberal Party. A fire hydrant could run for the Liberal Party and they would vote Liberal. Likewise, there are individuals who a bale of hay could be running for the Conservatives and they would vote for the bale of hay. There are people who never change their votes. That is not me. As a matter of fact, I at one time was a card-carrying member of the Liberal Party. Also at one time a card-carrying member of the Conservative Party. And I don't mind sharing my viewpoint because I think that bespeaks my ability to look at things from differing perspectives. As a matter of fact, and loath as I am to admit it, but it's fact, in 2015, when it was Justin Trudeau's Liberals running against Stephen Harper's Conservatives, yeah, I'm partly to blame. It's one vote, but I voted Liberal in that election, in the 2015 election. I repented of my sin. I regretted my choice later. And in 2019, I went completely the other way, and I voted PPC for Maxime Bernier's People's. I can't. This is horrible. The People's Party of Canada, PPC. I couldn't even remember the name. I was thinking it had the name Popular in it because he's often referred to as a populist, and like populism, being popular is a bad thing somehow. Trying to appeal to a broad-based and to be popularly supported is suddenly you're a populist is a negative thing. But the simple fact of the matter is, an individual far smarter than myself have made the point that Canadians, and it's probably not unique to Canadians, but Canadians, we don't elect governments so much as we kick governments out. It wasn't that we were embracing Justin Trudeau, it's that we were tired of Stephen Harper. Harper had been in power for 10 years, and Canadians were tired of him. Harper had defeated 3 Liberal leaders. He had defeated the Liberals under Paul Martin, then he had defeated the Liberals under Stéphane Dion, and then he defeated the Liberals under Michael Ignatieff. So it took, the Liberals went from Chrétien to Martin, and then Martin managed to win one election against Harper. And then the subsequent election, Paul Martin won a minority mandate. And then in the election subsequent to that one, Harper was able to win. And again, he beat Martin, then he beat Stéphane Dion, then he beat Michael Ignatieff, and then he lost to Trudeau. But it wasn't that Canadians were embracing Justin Trudeau. It's that Canadians were sick and tired. We were done. Harper was yesterday's news. He'd gotten us through the financial crisis. Canada came out far better than most other nations. Just about everyone recognizes that. But Harper had all the warmth of an old cup of coffee and about as flavorful. And Trudeau has worn himself out. He's a poser. He's a pretender. He's a phony. He said, his rhetoric never matches up with his actions. I can go through a whole litany of reasons why Canadians are done with him, but I will note, I should be, to be fair to that 24% of the population who are still supporting him. Some of them, they're not supporting him. There's an element within the Liberal Party that wants Justin Trudeau gone. There are sitting members in his caucus who realize that their seat is at risk. They've got a job that probably, in pay and benefits and everything, is worth around $250,000 a year, around $250,000 a year between salary and perks like being a parliamentary secretary or a committee chair, things of this nature. Their pay package probably comes maybe even close to $300,000 a year, and they're at risk of being out of work. And Canadians, overwhelmingly, I believe, we don't vote for the local candidate. By and large, we vote for the leader of the party. Canadians do not directly elect our prime minister. The only people who get to vote for Trudeau are the residents of his riding, which is called, I think it's called Papineau in Montreal area. They're the only people who get to vote directly for Justin Trudeau. In my riding, which is Kawartha, Northumberland South, I think that's the name of my riding, there will be 4, 5, 6 candidates. Goodness knows we have such a pizza parliament now. We have the Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, the Greens, the PPC, and then if you're in Quebec, you can throw in the Bloc Québécois, and there are other parties as well. There's the Christian Heritage Party. There may even still be a Libertarian Party around. We've got too many parties, but in my riding, what will happen is there will be a Liberal, Conservative, NDP, Green, and maybe a PPC candidate. Likely, we've had one the last 2 elections. And you've got to pick between one of those 4 or 5 individuals. Whoever wins the most votes first past the post, meaning whoever gets the most votes. They don't have to have a statistical majority. They don't have to have 50% plus 1. You just have to have more votes than everyone else. Conceivably, with 5 candidates running, you get 22, 23% conceivably and win, although typically the winning candidates tend to get 34, 35 or more. And so then what happens in our parliament, I'm saying this for the edification of any Americans who might be watching, our House of Commons is somewhat akin to your House of Representatives. And so at the end of the day, whichever party elects the most members to our parliament, to our House of Commons, whichever party has the most seats, that party's leader then becomes the prime minister. So Canadians, we don't get to vote for the prime minister directly. But what's amazed me is that, getting back to where I started, this miserable, pathetic, zero production value little YouTube channel that I have, all of a sudden I was hovering around 160, 180 subscribers for the longest time. Videos very rarely would hit up around 1,000 views. Might be one. I might have 2 or 3 out of 200 plus videos, 2 or 3 that I've gotten in and around 1,000. And all of a sudden, this one, it's gone over 15,000 in just 4 or 5 days. It's got 100 plus comments, although a lot of those are mine replying, but there's got to be 60, 70 unique comments on it. And almost at that, we're getting up, it's over 900 likes. I'll probably hit over 1,000 on it. I was just telling jokes with Trudeau being the brunt of them. And I'll have another one for you shortly. But I mean, not a lot of Canadians do not buy into the gender ideology that Trudeau has so embraced. This idea that gender is just a societal construct and that you can choose your gender and that it can be fluid and you can be a man one day and a girl the next, or a woman the next, and can't even define what a woman is anymore. You know, this world has gone, pardon the expression, but it's gone batshit crazy. And a lot of Canadians recognize that. They know what Canadians know what a woman is. At least 75% of us or so. There's a, fringe minority who don't know what the difference is between a man and a woman. The majority of Canadians do. But our horrible excuse for a prime minister likes to pander to the extremes, and he is pandering to left-wing extremist ideologues. And most Canadians were not extremist right or left. We're in the middle. And some of that 24% who are siding with Trudeau, it's not that they like Trudeau, they wish he would go, but they don't like Pierre Poilievre. And I'm not here, this video, I'm not going to be defending Pierre Poilievre. He's my choice right now, simply because Trudeau's an incredibly low bar. Candy the Wonder Pup is preferable to Justin Trudeau. But the whole gender thing, I'm a people, you may remember that. Someone said, they referred to humankind or humanity, and he said, we prefer people kind. You do. The climate change fiasco that is hammering the hell out of Canadians in energy bills, filling up the tank. They're just heaping more and more taxes. There's that famous meme that goes around with Ralph Wiggum. I'm paying higher taxes so the weather can be gooder. And when we look at carbon emissions, I mean, if carbon emissions really are the big bad boogeyman that they are made out to be, and then you look at China and India and emerging economies and how they're firing up coal-fired plants like crazy, any reduction we make is a drop in the bucket. And you look at a province like Alberta with their oil sands and their natural gas and everything, and they're such a huge driver and there's so much potential wealth there, and we're shooting ourselves in the foot. The economy, is the biggest creator of jobs now in this country is government. And I'm speaking as a former, I was in the Army, so that made me a federal government employee. That's where everyone's going now. The private sector has been decimated. COVID hammered the living crap out of it. The entrepreneurial sector just got their teeth knocked out by the way we responded to that. Home Depot, you can stay open, but that little mom and pop hardware store that gets 3 people in at it at a time, no, close them down. You can have hundreds of people in Home Depot at any one time. You can look at Trudeau, the way he's handled the native file. I mean, the most disgusting thing I ever saw was during the 2019 election, or in and around that time. Trudeau, there's something within the Liberal Party called the Laurier Club. And to be a member of the Laurier Club, you got to be donating, I don't know how many thousands of dollars a year, and they have fundraising dinners, and it costs like $1,500 a plate just to go and bend the ear of the Prime Minister, pay for access. Something all the parties do, unfortunately, whether Conservative or Liberal or even NDP. You want access to the throne, you got to pay. And 2 Native protesters showed up to a Laurier Club function, paying their $1,500 so that they could confront Trudeau. They were from a riding, from a reserve in Northern Ontario. I believe the name is Grassy Narrows. And Trudeau had visited that reserve back during the 2015 election, and that reserve has an abandoned pulp and paper mill, and there are people getting sick and dying from mercury poisoning. I don't know much about the pulp and paper industry, but apparently mercury from processing the pulp and paper was leaching into the groundwater, people getting sick, people dying, and Trudeau had committed. He had committed. He's great at making, he's a great talker. He said, he's committed to cleaning it up and addressing the issue and, looking after the people of Grassy Narrows. And then 2019 comes around and he's done nothing. And so 2 Native protesters wanted to confront him. So they paid $1,500 for this Laurier Club function. And a woman stood up. She held up a banner. You can watch it. It's on YouTube. And you can't see the banner. There was like cell phone video type coverage. It's not covered by the press, but there was cell phone type video coverage. I imagine it was her. There were 2 of them. And I imagine one of them, as she unrolled the banner, the other one was taking the video, which is why we know about it. And she stood up and she confronted Trudeau and said, why haven't you done anything about the mercury poisoning on the Grassy Narrows reserve? And immediately, within nanoseconds, 2 security type individuals had taken a hold of the woman and they were escorting her forcibly out of the room. And she was dragging her feet and trying still, you committed. And Trudeau mocked her. He said, thank you for your donation. Thanks for the $1,500, stupid Native. Oh, that drove me nuts. That type of duplicity, forget it. Trudeau, within the last year or 2, there was the World Indigenous Games were taking place in Halifax. And I think a lot of Indigenous Canadians, First Nations Canadians, remember what he said to that woman. And when he came onto the stage, they booed him lustily, and he deserves it. We can talk about the black face, which, hey, I'm a fair-minded individual. He was young, stupid. We've all done stupid things when we're young. He blacked himself up, ha ha ha. And it was video or a picture of him came out, and he lied to Canadians and said, well, I'm very sorry, it was wrong. He said all the right things. But he said it was only the one time. I only did it that one time. And then subsequent to that, 2 other incidents came out. 2 other incidents, one in a yearbook style photo from that school he worked at temporarily and left under, no one's exactly sure why. There are conflicting reasons as to why, even from the Prime Minister himself. And that with him wearing a turban, and he went full Monty. I mean, hands, everything. And then another one came out of, I think, a short little video, and the press took him to task, and they said, you said before it was once, and now we've found 2 other incidents, so you lied to us. Are there more? And then Trudeau had to admit that he's done it so many times, he cannot put a number on it. He said there may be other videos out there. If those were the only 3 times, he could say definitively, well, no, that's it. I shouldn't have lied. You got me, but that's it. But he didn't. Which tells me he's done it so many times that he can't put a number on it. Or if he can put a number on it, it's so bloody high, he doesn't want to say it. You can talk about MAID, medical assistance in dying. This is another big initiative that has come under the Trudeau Liberals, where individuals it's euthanasia. The sanctity of human life. There was a Canadian Forces veteran, a woman, and a Paralympian to boot, who she lived, she had to, when she was going out, she had a wheelchair, and she would have to drag the wheel, slide on her ass, I guess, down the stairs, dragging the wheelchair, and then in reverse coming back in the house. And she called Veterans Affairs and wanted to get some assistance to get like a chairlift so that she wouldn't have to slide down the stairs dragging her wheelchair up and down. And they proposed, well, if you'd like, we can help you in medical assistance in dying. That's disgusting. And what else? A lot of Canadians have woken up to the fact that the World Economic Forum is not our friend. That this globalist agenda putting forth this, this supposed new world, brave new world utopia is not in the interest of Canadians. And so and Trudeau is a graduate, if you will, of the World Economic Forum's Young Leaders Program. Ontario Prepper is saying, new here, we need an election now. I would welcome an election now with the way the polls are going right now. The Liberals could fall all the way down to third party status. There is the potential for that to happen. However, unfortunately, the way our democracy runs is that there are only two ways that an election could be held. Number one, Trudeau would have to go to the Governor General, ask that Parliament be dissolved for the purpose of calling a general election. That's what he did in 2021 when he thought he could maybe get a majority. He won a majority in 2015. In 2019, he won a minority, lost the popular vote. More Canadians voted Conservative than voted Liberal in 2019. And then with the COVID pandemic going on and thinking that Canadians were so scared that they were scared enough and stupid enough to vote him into a majority, he went to the polls early. He went to the Governor General, asked that the legislature be dissolved, and an election was called. And he basically, it was a rinse and repeat. He won this about the same size of a minority as he had before, and he lost the popular vote. Again, he lost the popular vote in 2019 and in 2021. Ontario Prepper is saying the abyss would be better. He cheated and still got a minority. The way our system is set up, listen, I have been a scrutineer in my life. A scrutineer, those are the individuals who represent a specific candidate in a riding, and they watch the voting process. People come in, they get their name checked off, they get their ballot, they put it in the box. I far prefer our Canadian system of democracy to what they have in the US. The US, everything is run at the state level, and it's a mismatch. In some states, you're using touchscreen voting, in some you're scanning your ballot, and some you're pulling a lever. In Canada, we have Elections Canada. It's a federal agency, and it's paper ballots where you put an X, and then once the polls close, the polling box is then opened. You have returning and deputy returning officers. They count the ballots, and each candidate has the right to have a scrutineer there watching the voting process. They can make objections if they think that a ballot that shouldn't be counted is counted, or if they think that a ballot that should be counted is discarded. They can challenge it, put in a formal complaint, this sort of thing. Typically, it goes very well. 99.9% of the time, it's 100% clear who the individual voted for. It's tallied up. I do have confidence in the results, overwhelmingly. I've got Bob Nunez saying Trudeau knew we would never vote for him again, stole the election. When I look at what happened in the United States of America, when I look at what happened during that 2020 election, and we saw with Donald Trump in Pennsylvania, in Indiana, I think Wisconsin was another, Ohio, in what they refer to as these battleground states. Everyone knows that California is going to vote Democrat, New York's going to vote Democrat, everyone knows Texas is going to go Republican, but these states like Indiana, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida. These are what they refer to as the battleground states. And everyone went to bed on election night looking at the results. Didn't matter whether you're watching ABC, CBS, CNN, didn't matter which network you were watching. Trump was leading by hundreds of thousands of votes in all these key battleground states. And so a lot of his supporters went to bed confident in believing that Donald Trump was going to be reelected and would be the president of the United States for the next 4 years. They woke up in the morning and then all of a sudden it was reported, well, they got a bunch of mail-in ballots last night, and that flipped the results in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, in Florida, in Nevada, in the key battleground states. And the main ones are Pennsylvania, Indiana, Ohio. Those are three big ones. I think Minnesota was another one. I'm not sure if Florida was or not. I now have Sheriff of YouTube saying Montreal Sheneda here, Montrealais, a Montrealer. I do speak French. I got to give you a joke because I think, the reason that video I did 4 or 5 days ago got 15,000 views and everything is that I think it's symptomatic of our times. Even a pathetic, miserable channel like this with a Joe Nobody like me on a stupid little channel like this, it's like people are just jumping on it like crazy. And all the comments, 120 comments, there was only one person, only one comment was attempting to defend Trudeau over the manner the disgusting manner in which he dealt with the trucker convoy. I've got COVID. I can't come out. Again, I've got COVID again. I'm sick again. Trudeau. Sheriff of YouTube is saying I subbed for the jokes. Thanks. Well, here's another one. So did Ontario Prepper. All right, so more Trudeau jokes. So Trudeau's down in New York City, and he went to the bank. He had a speaking engagement. They giving him a check for $10,000, $15,000, and he wanted to cash it. So he went into a bank, but lo and behold, he didn't have any ID on him. But he figures, I'm the Prime Minister of Canada. This is a world city. Everyone will know who I am. So he walks in and he endorses the check. And he goes, I'd like to cash this check, please. And teller looks at the check and looks at the payee. And she goes, okay, do you have any ID, Mr. Trudeau? And he goes, no, unfortunately, no, I left my wallet and everything back in my hotel. But trust me, I'm Justin Trudeau. You can cash the check. And she goes, well, unfortunately, I'm not allowed. Federal regulations. We have RICO, anti-racketeering and everything like that. And it's impossible for me to cash this check without making 100% positive ID that you are indeed Justin Trudeau. He goes, look at my hair. Look at my teeth. I'm Justin Trudeau. Everyone knows me. Je parle français. Je suis le premier ministre du Canada. Lots of people speak French. And he goes, come on, there must be something you can do. I mean, you can cash this check, surely. And she goes, well, I'll tell you, this has happened before. A number of years ago, we had Tiger Woods. He came into the branch, and he didn't have any ID. He was cashing a check as well. And so we weren't able to cash the check until we could verify his ID, 100%. And to prove who he was, he asked if there were any golf clubs in the branch, and it turned out our branch manager had his clubs in his office. So he had them brought out, and he took out a 64-degree lob wedge, and he went to the front of the bank, and from about 25 feet away, he took that lob wedge, and he hit the most perfect chip, and he called it, put it right into a coffee cup sitting on a desk. And at that, we all knew it was Tiger Woods, and we cashed a check. He'd proven himself. And then, around that, or a few years before that, or right around that time, Roger Federer came in, and likewise, he'd left his ID in his hotel room, wanted to cash a check, and he looked like Roger Federer, but we couldn't be sure. So he asked if anyone had a tennis racket. And one of our bank staff had their tennis racket here. They belonged to an indoor tennis club. So he brought out the tennis racket and a tennis ball. and someone just just bounced the ball up to him, and he made this perfect drop shot and into that same desk and into that same coffee cup. He called it. He put it right in there, and we knew we were dealing with Roger Federer. No one else could do that. So if you could do something like that, and Trudeau just stares at the teller blankly, and he goes, I'm blank. I can't think of anything. And the teller goes, oh, very good. Do you want that in small or large bills? Badoom-shi. Trudeau is done with them. And I think most Canadians are. Unfortunately, in the world of politics, they say 2 weeks is a lifetime. We will not have an election in all likelihood until September of 2025. Trudeau is not going to ask the Governor General to dissolve the legislature, to dissolve Parliament for the purpose of calling an election with him at 20 or so percent in the polls and Poilievre's Conservatives up around 40 plus. He'll get wiped out. And so that's one way an election can be called, and it won't happen. The other way that it would be required, what you would need to have is a vote of no confidence. You would need to have the Conservatives in tandem with another party or parties, 170 votes. And I don't know the exact seat count but I've got it handy. I can call it up. But there would have to be 170 votes voting in favor of no confidence. And as things currently stand, the Liberals, they have 155. Conservatives have 119. So they need 170. So they need 51 more. Even the getting the NDP isn't enough. You would need the NDP and the Bloc Québécois. And that makes it incredibly problematic because the members of the Bloc Québécois and the members of the NDP, they're not sure they're going to win their seats. There are very few safe Bloc Québécois, safe NDP seats. I said at the beginning, there are Liberal ridings where if the candidate was a fire hydrant, people would vote Liberal. And there are Conservative ridings where it doesn't matter if it's a bale of hay in parts of Alberta, they're voting Conservative no matter who it is. But for members of the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, certainly the two Green members, they're touch and go. And they've got a job that probably, total compensation package, 300 or so grand a year. They don't want to lose their jobs. And so they'll either abstain from a vote or they'll prop the Liberals up to ensure that there isn't a vote of no confidence. I'm going to go through the comments. The P joke was great. Thank you. That's a reworked joke. I first heard that. I'm old. My mom or dad told me that back in the 70s, and it was Pierre Trudeau and Robert Stanfield. Hopefully, Jagmeet doesn't get his pharmacare promise and separates. Jagmeet Singh, to me, he's irrelevant. He'll say whatever he needs to say, like a lot of politicians. I lost a lot of respect for him when he appeared on a Quebec talk show and he removed his turban, which is something, my understanding, and I know individuals who are Sikh, that's the way it's pronounced properly, not Sikh, Sikh, that's the way they say it. A Sikh is never to remove his turban in public unless there's an emergency. And there have been some emergencies. There was a case a few years ago where two gentlemen, members of the Sikh faith, were somewhere out in Alberta, and someone had fallen in Someone was skating out on a lake or a pond. They'd fallen in, and these gentlemen crawled out on the ice. They removed their turbans, lashed them together, and used that as to rescue the individual who had fallen into the ice. In those circumstances, a sick is allowed to remove, and there have been other instances where they've been used for bandages or as a head support for someone who's had a traumatic injury, a car accident, things like that. Not Jagmeet Singh. Jagmeet Singh took his off to pander for votes. And if that's how seriously he takes his faith, he uses it as a tool. Ontario Prepper is saying the deadline is March 1st. For what? I don't think I have to worry on this channel. I don't think we're going to get many people who are NDP or dippers, so-called dippers. The one thing I will say, and I'm going to wrap it up, is that tell these jokes, repeat them. You know, why isn't Justin Trudeau circumcised? Because there's no end to that dick. Short little one-liners like that work better too. Just, you know, Trudeau is so disgusting, and we so need to be rid of him. And the thing is, there's an effort to control the narrative, both discussions in the lunchroom or wherever, in the public space or online, and be loud, be bold. Try to be. I'll be honest, I am not a big fan of the F Trudeau sign. I agree with the sentiment. It's just, and I'm not one who's averse to profanity. I don't engage in it a lot. But sometimes an F-bomb is warranted, but there are kids walking down the street. They don't need to see that. They know what it means. And I genuinely think there's a camp mentality that happens in politics. And people say, well, I don't want to be associated with that crowd, or I don't want to be associated with that crowd. And I think it behooves, you know, if you support a party, try and be try not to engage in too much profanity. Sorry if I'm sounding like an old stick in the mud, stuck up. I don't mean to, but, you know, I have my issues with Pierre Poilievre. The biggest issue I have with Pierre Poilievre is, I think it was during the trucker convoy. He was doing a meet and greet, shaking hands, and an individual came up to him and asked him what he thought about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, these SDGs, these 17 nation-destroying programs which are being foisted on us by the UN that Trudeau's fully signed up for. And Pierre Poilievre waxed ignorant. Oh, I've never heard of them. Like, what? You're the leader of the Conservative Party, and you're telling me you know nothing about the UN Sustainable Development Goals? Hell, Jordan Peterson talks about them in his videos, and you don't know about them? What? I found that a little hard to believe that he didn't, when he said he didn't know about them. Deadline March 1st for pharmacare. There were a lot of those flags at the convoy, too many to count. I know. And I didn't get out to the convoy. I don't live that far away, probably a 2.5, 3 hour drive to get to Ottawa. And I do wish I had gone. I was out on the overpass. We have 2 overpasses in my little town. One is attached to the 401, and the other one is just an overpass, a county road. And both bridges had, the one I was on probably had 70, 80 people on it. And I did a bit of a head count, took a video, shared it to my Facebook. The other bridge, the pastor from my church, he was on it, and he told me there were about 50 people on that bridge. But I did have a number of friends, a number of people I know firsthand. There was a woman in town with 3 kids, her and her husband and their 3 boys. They went down, said it was the most incredible, loving carnival type atmosphere, and the way that Trudeau handled that was absolutely beyond disgusting. It was horrible. Certain fringe minority holding unacceptable views, often racist and misogynist. Oh, get lost. I did a video back then, actually put on my beret, my old beret. I left the military in June of 2021. Didn't like leveraging off my status as being ex-military, but that cheesed me off beyond belief what he said, and I did one in English and one in French. Ontario Prepper saying he spent 16 days at the convoy, and I live in Niagara Falls. God love you, man. That the convoy is what brought this country back to a degree of sanity. Still took, it was September, October before I was allowed to get onto an airplane, train, or whatever. They still barred unvaxxed people, un-COVID vax people who got the non-vaccinating vaccine, the immunization that doesn't immunize. Don't get me going on the whole COVID psyop, which is what it was, a psychological operation from start to finish, driving fear, and everything from the very get-go was geared toward getting as many people to roll up their sleeves as possible willingly because they were scared to death over SARS-CoV-2, the mouse that roared. And when they couldn't get enough people to do it willingly, then they brought in illegal coercive measures. No jab, no job. No jab, no travel. You can't go visit your dying mother because you're not willing to take what the government of Canada itself has admitted in the House of Commons. Anthony Housefeather admitted during parliamentary committee meetings that the reason Canadians are not allowed to see the contracts that the government of Canada signed with Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and whoever else, the reason we Canadians cannot see that documentation, these contracts, is because the pharmaceutical companies, and this is Anthony Housefeather, parliamentary secretary to Trudeau's Liberal government, said the reason we can't see them is because the government of Canada was asking the pharmaceutical company to develop these quote unquote vaccines in a way they'd never done before without the proper testing. And that's his own testimony in front of a parliamentary committee as a parliament secretary after sometime after he gave that response. Sometime after that, he was demoted. He's no longer a parliamentary secretary. Wonder why? I don't know. Ontario Prepper is saying that Pierre Poilievre is the lesser of 3 evils, hands down. Amen. You're not going to get any argument from me. I don't think Pierre Poilievre is perfect. Unfortunately, the way the political game is set up in Canada, I think it's damn hard to get a quality individual to run. Why would you subject yourself to that horrible arena if you don't have to? I'm reading what Ontario Prepper. I'm another veteran asking for more than they can. Oh, yeah, we all remember that. This is why they won't allow Trudeau to speak off script anymore. Everything's got to be a scripted response, because if he talks off the top of his head, he'll talk about imaginary juice box, bottle, degradable, made up product that everyone remembers. And Ontario Prepper, like me, never rolled up his sleeve. I never even got tested. I went, many of you will probably know if you're watching this, there's a church out in Aylmer, Ontario, where they were gathering with no social distancing, which Anthony Fauci has now admitted had no scientific backing behind it. Think about it. I was just out walking my dog the other day, actually today, yet today or yesterday, it doesn't matter. And someone was coming in front, and I was remembering how 3-4 years ago, you go walk down the street and people would, move out onto the road. You didn't want to get to within 6 feet of anybody. And I went down to Aylmer, and members of that congregation invited myself and my family to stay over. I lived as normal a life as was possible, given the conditions, with so many of the majority of the population fell for the PSYOP. They fell for it. Some opened their eyes quickly, some it took a little longer, and some, their eyes are still closed, firm, shut. Oh yeah, the PCR, polymer chain reaction test. Those things were never meant to be used as a diagnostic tool, as per the individual who invented them. They could be part of a diagnosis, but they were not to be used as a diagnostic tool in of themselves. And what did they use to report on case numbers? The PCR test. But we can go over the COVID stuff. They succeeded. They achieved their goal. They got probably 80% of the population to roll up their sleeves. There's some good news. If you go to Health Canada, Ontario Public Health, if you go to the various provincial health agencies and just Google COVID vaccine handling instructions, you'll find out that, they had to be stored at like minus 70 degrees Fahrenheit, insanely cold temperatures, that they'd have to be thawed out for a certain number of hours, and then for a certain number of hours they could be stored in a commercial fridge. They could not be exposed to direct sunlight. They had these very complex handling procedures, and the reason for that is simply because mRNA, messenger RNA, is incredibly fragile and it breaks down incredibly easy. And basically what these jabs used to be that vaccines were based on either inactivated or dead or weak version of either a weak version of a live virus or dead virus, introducing it to your body so that your immune system learns how to fight it and develops antibodies. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. The mRNA is not based on giving you an inactivated or weakened version of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. What it did was they took a nanolipid particle that I've heard described as a FedEx box with instructions in it, telling your body what proteins that your body already has, what proteins to recruit, and how to put them together so that your own body manufactures the toxic spike protein on the surface of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. However, those instructions on that nanolipid particle are incredibly fragile. I equate it to taking a piece of tissue paper and writing directions to your house to someone, and then that tissue paper gets wet. You can't read the directions. Well, the reason for these incredibly complex storage procedures, handling procedures, minus 70 degrees Celsius and everything else, was because that nanolipid particle could break down into mush. This guy named Ryan Cole, who's a pathologist out of the United States, explained it very well. Could basically break down into mush. And so I think a lot of people who got jabbed in my town at a local hockey arena in the parking lot, they'd have folding chairs set up and people were getting jabbed in the parking lot. Well, there's exposure to direct sunlight, which could break down this nanolipid particle, meaning that the individual got the adjuvants, but they wouldn't get the toxic spike building instructions. I think a lot of people may have dodged a bullet. We know now in Canada, they've come out with this newest shot, the XBB.1.5 came out in October. Only 15% roughly of Canadians have gotten the shot. despite the fact that Health Canada and all the provincial health agencies are strongly urging and recommending that everyone get it. Only 15% of Canadians have. I don't like to be unkind, but you're right, Ontario preppers, sheeple. People are conditioned to do what they call it television for a reason, that tells you what to do, tells you what to think, what to believe, and even how to feel. Be afraid, be afraid, be very, very afraid. God bless. I've gone on almost a full hour. Sorry about that. I don't like these to be so long. Hope you like the jokes. Why isn't Trudeau circumcised? It's an old one. It's been recycled. All my jokes are recycled. I'm old. God bless. And if you want to like, subscribe, comment in the comment field down below. Anyone wants to go at me about that trucker convoy, go for it. That was the greatest thing that's happened in this country since the 1972 Summit Series, when Canada defeated the Soviet Union at hockey. God bless. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ontario Prepper, Bob Nunya, and I think that was the Sheriff of YouTube. We'll talk to you all again, hopefully sometime.